Well, good evening. Today I'm going to show you an instrument I just finished. Okay, this is one of those unusual instruments that kind of brought together from a lot of different directions. At first glance, it looks like it might be some sort of a banjo, but unlike a banjo, it has a wooden head. That is about an 1/8 inch thick piece of plywood. I made another instrument like that, except it was an octagon. This is made up of 12 segments of wood, 2 layers, and then I rounded them off a little bit. So, and I had the idea of making a 5-string instrument. Now, a lot of banjos have 5 strings, but 5-string banjos have a short string that ends about here. And this one, the 5th string goes all the way down the neck to the end. Basically, this is the highest 5 strings of a guitar. I used a 25-inch scale length because I have a template for that. And the neck is angled downward, and that allows me, or forces me, depending upon how you want to look at it, to bringing this bridge up high in order to not have the strings touching the neck back here. And that enables me to use a type of a trapeze tailpiece. This is actually the tailpiece of a banjo. I had to do some modifications of it so that it could use ball end strings, because these things usually use strings that have a loop end, and I wanted to use the ball ends for a number of reasons. First of all, banjo strings don't come in the gauges I want, but guitar strings do, and they have ball ends. At least metal ones do. Now, if you look here, you can see there's a back on it. That's put on there. And as you can also see, there are some holes along the bottom of the side to allow the sound to come out. And if you look here, you can see that there is a brace that runs underneath the soundboard from end to end, and then is braced against the side here. Now, I didn't initially have that brace on there. I wanted the soundboard to be unbraced, but string tension and force made me put a brace in there, because if I don't have the brace, the amount of force produced by these 5 strings pushing down onto the soundboard where this bridge is was causing the soundboard to deflect, to basically go further and further and further down. And no matter how high I put the bridge, it just forced it down further. And so I made a special brace that actually arched up a little bit, so that when I glued it all up, it was totally flat instead of being depressed. So I'm hoping that it will remain flat. It's a pretty stout brace, but having it braced, I have to pay a price for that. One of the reasons a banjo sounds like it does is because the sound board, or the skin of a banjo, is unbraced, which allows it to vibrate freely. And vibrating freely allows it to hit really hard and then die out real quick. The reason an acoustic guitar is braced the way it's braced is to help sustain that vibration, also to control that vibration. And so this has a pretty unique sound. Here's the sound of the high string. So it's relatively loud. It's about as loud as a guitar. But you know, it's less banjo-y sounding and more guitar-y sounding. So how do you play an instrument like this? Well, all I'm really missing is the low E string. So some chords, you don't play the low E string anyway. In fact, if you want to play the low E string, you have to do a drop D tuning or something in order to play that string, unless you want to fret it. So a D, for example, I can play all 5 strings on a D. I can play all 5 strings on a regular C. On an E. And I don't have to bar to get an F. I can just bar the bottom 2, and I still get all the strings. So if I'm playing that E progression, I can play all the strings without having to bar all the way across, like I would have to if I had a low E string. So how do I play a G? Well, that's a kind of a weird thing, because I only have 1. I don't have 2 up here like you do normally a G. So I have this. 1 on top and 1 on the bottom. Have to learn, there's a little bit of a learning curve there. The E minor is the same. So it's a little brighter than a guitar, than most guitars. And it's less bright than a banjo, I guess. So what is this made out of? Well, the circle structure, I have a lot of black locust. I have a little bit of walnut kind of thrown in. I have a little oak. I have a little mahogany. Basically, a lot of scraps went into the making of this. I had to set up a whole kind of device with my table saw to cut these segments as perfect as I could, so that I could make a 12-sided figure. And then once I had all the 12-sided figures set up and glued together and glued to each other, well, then I took the table saw and I just started hacking away at the corners until I had something that looked very, very round. And then I sanded it a little more. I did a lot of sanding. As a matter of fact, I sanded so much and I didn't use as much protective equipment as I should have. I basically sneezed for a month. The whole month of December I was sneezing. So that probably was caused by having done that. You know, the price we pay, right? The neck, I bought a nice piece of oak to build the neck out of. And the surface of the fretboard is actually a couple of pieces of locust that are glued together to give me the thickness that I wanted on the fretboard. I use regular frets, except down here. This is a 0 fret. And this 0 fret is made from one jumbo fret, a piece of a jumbo fret, just a tiny, tiny bit higher than the rest of these frets. And so I get a little bit of action here. And then here, of course, I can set this action by raising and lowering this bridge. I could probably take just a little more off the bridge, but I'm a little afraid to, for fear that if this deflects a little bit, it'll be on top of my fretboard. I use regular tuners, nothing special, $10 or $12 for a set of tuners. I do have a truss rod, and this is a radiused fretboard, and you can see that the bridge is also radiused with the same 12-degree radius that I used for the fretboard and the frets, because I bought 12-degree frets. Put a couple of strap buttons on it. This whole assembly is basically attached with one screw right here. I'm hoping that'll be enough. So here's what it sounds like. Anyway, so that's what it sounds like. Like I said, it's a little bright. So I'll learn to play something unique to this instrument. And I'll get back to you. Have a nice night.